Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the scenes when UFC fighters let their guard down or clash backstage? From impulsive late-night live streams to shocking backstage run-ins and coaches calling out their own champions, the MMA world has been buzzing with controversies that no one saw coming. Fans might think they've seen it all, but these latest revelations prove otherwise. Today, we're diving into surprising reactions from iconic rivals, scorching social media feuds, and behind-the-scenes drama that could shake up the next wave of fights. Stay tuned, because each turn in this story only gets more unpredictable. Jon Jones has always been a polarizing figure, a spectacular athlete with an uncanny ability to spark controversy at every turn. Recently, he made waves yet again when he hopped onto a live stream late at night while on vacation with family. The live stream raised eyebrows as viewers noticed he seemed, well, let's just say not his usual self, slurring words and ranting in a way that fueled fan speculation. Many expected the usual avalanche of criticism, especially from his longtime rival Daniel Cormier. Yet, in a twist no one saw coming, Cormier didn't rush to tear Jones apart. Instead, Daniel Cormier showed empathy. Speaking on a podcast alongside another retired fighter, Cormier described the everyday stresses of family vacations. Yes, even MMA legends face meltdown moments when kids test their patience. He pointed out how fathers often end up being the bad guy when they lose their temper, no matter how justified. While fans initially assumed DC would celebrate Jon Jones's perceived stumble, he actually defended Jones, suggesting that the champion was merely blowing off steam like anyone else might. Naturally, fans on social media lit up with heated takes. Some applauded DC's maturity, saying it's refreshing to see him take the high road. Others claimed he's just leaving the door open for a future grudge match, looking to build tension by being the bigger man for now. Whatever the motive, it's evident that even between two of the sport's biggest rivals, there's a sliver of respect. And in a world where rivalries can get downright vicious, that glimpse of common ground is a story in itself. Of course, anytime these two men's names appear in the same headline, the MMA community starts whispering about a potential trilogy fight. Will this moment of mutual respect cool their rivalry for good, or is it merely setting the stage for something bigger? For now, both appear content on separate paths, but if the stars ever align for another showdown, fans might see a different kind of buildup, a more personal dynamic where two men who once detested each other might be able to step back and say, yes, we're both flawed, but let's settle this. Cormier's compassion toward Jones might have surprised many, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. Another fighter is gearing up for a war so intense that he's already planning on leaving the arena on a stretcher, and he's totally fine with it.
Can I be honest with you? And I don't like doing this. I don't like being supportive. So Jon Jones the other day was like freaking out walking down the street, and he was saying some crazy stuff about his kid. Ben, you know what's crazy, man? You said he was on vacation. I didn't know he was on vacation. If he was on vacation, haven't we all been there? Maybe not that extreme, but it's like our kids drive us crazy. And you know what the worst part is? When you go back to that hotel room, you're the bad guy. Everybody's found a way to make you're the bad guy because you're upset about them being bad. I don't want to defend him, but I mean, come on, man. He's got like, not saying you're going to, but like, oh my God, my children are being so bad. Have we not all been there?
In the realm of blood and guts showdowns, Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje is shaping up to be a 5-round epic that could deliver exactly what fans love, an unfiltered brawl. Both are known for leaving it all in the cage. Hooker's even gone on record saying he's mentally prepared to end the night in a hospital bed. Fights between warriors like Hooker and Gaethje often capture a unique blend of grit and artistry. Dan Hooker has an almost reckless courage, while Gaethje's style has matured from sheer brawler to controlled chaos. Hooker's words about accepting an ambulance ride and hospital stay highlight how physical and brutal this matchup could become. In interviews, Hooker doesn't hold back. He insists that this clash will push both men into unimaginable depths of pain. His logic is simple. If you're not ready for the worst, you shouldn't be stepping into the cage. Although it may sound nihilistic, it's the mindset of many top-level fighters who bet their bodies and pride on victory. Hooker's readiness to embrace suffering resonates with fans who admire raw, honest toughness. Justin Gaethje is no stranger to absolute wars. Early in his career, he was all about maximum damage. punch, both dished out and received. Over time, he's sharpened his technique, but the willingness to bite down on his mouthpiece and swing for the fences hasn't vanished. Fans anticipate that if Hooker stands toe-to-toe, it could erupt into Fight of the Year material. Another interesting tidbit is Hooker's mentioned that Alexander Volkanovski and Kai Kara France might be competing in April, possibly on the same card. The synergy among these teammates can be a driving force, pushing them to perform at their best. While Hooker is set to do battle a bit earlier, he might be ringside cheering them on if his hospital stay doesn't keep him away too long. As wild as Hooker versus Gaethje promises to be, other fighters are sparking feuds in more calculated ways. One big name is Belal Muhammad, who's eyeing a jump in weight classes, while throwing shade at nearly everyone above him.
Big right from Gaethje, and down goes Vic. Justin Gaethje is back and sticks the landing once again.
Oh! That's it! There it is! Dan Hooker! Knockout victory! Beautiful!
Belal Muhammad has been stirring up attention by announcing he's open to moving up to 185 pounds. It's not the first time fighters have flirted with the idea of testing themselves in a heavier division, but Muhammad's timing has tongues wagging. He dropped hints that if his friend, who happens to be the current lightweight champ, wanted to chase welterweight gold, Belal would step aside and jump up to middleweight. The logic: help a buddy out, keep the division open, and challenge himself in new territory. Muhammad didn't mince words. He basically said that most top middleweights suck, aside from Khamzat Chimaev. That's a bold claim, and it didn't take long for Dricus du Plessis to respond. Du Plessis, who's been on a tear, scoffed at the idea that Belal could waltz into 185 and dominate. There's a hefty size difference, and du Plessis insists that if Muhammad tried to stand with him, he'd get stomped. Literally, social media turned into a battlefield. Belal poked fun at du Plessis' footwork, sharing a clip where du Plessis stumbled during a clinch exchange. Du Plessis fired back by calling Belal delusional, claiming that neither the UFC nor the fans have an interest in seeing a smaller welterweight jump the line. According to DDP, it's a non-starter. For fans, though, the prospect of two irreverent talkers with contrasting styles is intriguing, even if it seems far-fetched right now. Should Belal get his wish to move up, he might have to earn a shot the old-fashioned way. Despite his success at 170, walking into a new division and expecting a top contender match is a tough sell. Meanwhile, du Plessis has his sights set on more immediate targets, possibly a title eliminator or a championship bout if the chips fall in his favor. Still, the tension between them sets a narrative the UFC might exploit down the road. Trash talk over potential weight class changes is one way to keep fans hooked. But let's pivot to fighters who are about to step into the cage this very weekend, and the awkward backstage encounters that have set the stage for fireworks.
How he acted as if he has a choice to ever go up to 185. Like, the UFC will never let him. Like, if he wants to do that, he would have to, abandon his belt. He would give up his belt, vacate, and go up to 185. And there's no way they give him a direct title shot. There's no way. The UFC doesn't even like Belal Muhammad.
Henry Cejudo is notorious for his cringy banter and over-the-top mind games. Ahead of his fight against Song Yadong, or the Dong as Henry cheekily calls him, the two crossed paths in a fighter hotel. It was every bit as awkward as fans might imagine, with Cejudo upping the cringe factor for social media. He posted a clip referring to Song Yadong in a teasing manner, classic Henry. Yet Song maintained his composure like a stoic statue. Cejudo aims to reassert himself as a top-tier name after returning from retirement. Song Yadong, on the other hand, is hungry to prove he's not just a prospect but a bona fide contender. The matchup is an interesting clash of wrestling-savvy Henry versus a formidable striker in Song. Critics wonder if Henry's comedic jabs will get under Song's skin, or if they'll simply roll off the younger fighter's back. Meanwhile, Bryce Mitchell isn't backing down from controversy. His first podcast episode caused major uproar because of his outspoken views that some labeled offensive. While the UFC president hasn't penalized Mitchell, the negativity swirling around him has been intense. Yet Mitchell's ready ready to roll out a second episode, unapologetic and determined to share his mind on anything from fight strategies to conspiracies. Most fighters stick to safe promotional talk. Mitchell, he plunges headfirst into polarizing topics. Some fans love his authenticity, while others question whether the unfiltered approach could harm his career. He shrugs off the criticism, saying only God's opinion matters to him. If that rubs certain viewers the wrong way, so be it. He's convinced that raw honesty sets him apart and may even draw in more curious audiences. Dana White has historically been tolerant when fighters have fiery personalities that attract attention. It remains to be seen if Mitchell's brand of shock jock commentary can continue without crossing lines that lead to sponsor or platform backlash. For now, Mitchell's determined to press on, and his upcoming fights might garner extra publicity from fans tuning in just to see if he backs up the talk in the cage. From cringeworthy face-offs to controversial talk shows, the spotlight moves now to one of the scariest strikers in the UFC and a champion whose explosive persona nearly led to a brawl at the Performance Institute.
I want to let y'all know that episode 2 of Ark Insanity is coming. I do not care what anybody except God thinks about me. I'm not going to let a little bit of criticism stop me. In fact, I think that was a crazy amount of feedback for a first episode on a podcast, so I'm definitely not going to stop. Once I get Ark Insanity up and going, it's going to be a regular thing once a week. If you're too sensitive for the show, then don't watch it. So my podcast is going to be talk about fighting, farming, anything I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about. And if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Remember when Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill almost threw hands at the UFC's Performance Institute? Tensions were so high you could practically feel the heat crackling between them. Words were exchanged, and for a moment it looked like things might escalate into a full-blown fistfight right there in the training facility. Fans couldn't believe their eyes. Two of the most feared men in the sport on a collision course outside of a sanctioned bout. Recently, Pereira revealed he's open to burying the hatchet. At least he's open to it once they aren't directly competing against each other. It's a philosophy he's held with other rivals as well. Just look at how he's maintained a more cordial rapport with Israel Adesanya once their series of fights concluded. Interestingly, Pereira envisions a scenario where he and Hill could not only become friends, but even train together. Could you imagine the synergy of two knockout artists refining each other's striking technique? Of course, Jamal Hill might have a different perspective. He has openly criticized Pereira's approach, especially the weird sequence that led to Pereira's highlight reel knockout against him in a previous bout. Hill felt Pereira took advantage of a confusing break in action to set up a finishing strike, which left him frustrated. Whether or not he's ready to let those feelings go is unclear, but MMA is a landscape where broken relationships sometimes mend in surprising ways. There's also the chance these two cross paths again in an official setting. Both are top-tier talents in or around the same division lines, and the unpredictability of the UFC's matchmaking means a rematch or new clash could be on the horizon. If that happens, friendship might have to wait, at least until the final bell rings. While some are trying to end feuds gracefully, others are seeking to renew hostilities. After an emphatic win, one fighter is calling for a rematch against a man who once bested him decisively.
Alex
Do you feel like this is one of the most difficult fights of your career so far?
Eu posso dizer que sim. Essa foi uma luta muito dura, mas como eu já esperava, pô, eu vi algumas lutas do Khalil e eu vi a experiência que ele tem, não só no MMA, mas pô, treinou muito Muay Thai.
I can say that this was one of the toughest fights. I expected that. I watched a lot of Khalil's fights. He's got experience. He trained in the best spots in Thailand, and he showed tonight why he's got so much quality in here.
Jared Cannonier tasted defeat against Robert Whittaker back in 2020. It wasn't a razor-thin decision either. Whittaker controlled much of that fight, but Cannonier has since racked up impressive performances, including a recent fourth-round finish that showcased his power and resilience. Now, with renewed momentum, he's aiming straight at the former champion's jugular, determined to avenge that loss and prove he belongs at the top. Robert Whittaker, usually a stalwart at middleweight, is coming off a surprising first-round submission loss to Khamzat Chimaev. While he's still ranked high and respected as an elite fighter, that defeat exposed vulnerabilities many hadn't seen before. Cannonier believes if he strikes while the iron is hot, facing Whittaker after a tough loss, he might have a better chance of claiming victory this time around. Whitaker has indicated he's targeting a June return following some dental surgery and recovery time. That lines up well with Cannonier's timeline, offering enough space for both men to come in at full strength. The UFC has been known to reward fighters who stay active and call their shots, so Cannonier's public challenge might nudge the promotion in his favor. A decisive Cannonier win over Whitaker could vault him into immediate title contention. The division is in a state of flux, especially with new challengers, rumored super fights, and shifting rankings. A rejuvenated Cannonier versus Whitaker II would be a can't-miss event for fans who enjoy high-level striking and game plans pitting speed against power. As these potential matchups brew, behind-the-scenes drama is also exploding. One of the most shocking recent developments involves a reigning champion and his head coach, who publicly aired dirty laundry. But was there more at play than just tactical disagreements?
History, because he beat me in that first fight handily.
Yep.
He lost his last fight. I won my last fight. Yes, I think Robert Whitaker would be a good rematch to be had to help progress my career, hopefully towards the title, because that's definitely what I'm going for. I'm definitely aiming for the top. So theoretically, that would be the one. Yes.
Sean Strickland's fight against Dricus du Plessis went the distance and ended in a decision that left some fans underwhelmed, but no one seemed more disappointed than Strickland's own coach, Eric Nicksick. Appearing on a show shortly afterward, Nicksick labeled Strickland's performance uninspiring, claiming he veered away from their agreed-upon plan to push the pace. The coach's remarks went viral, igniting a firestorm. Strickland, never one to hold his tongue, blasted Nicksick on social media. He suggested that Nicksick was acting more like an influencer than a real coach. He even hinted that maybe Nicksick wouldn't be in his corner next time around. Fans were divided, with some siding with the outspoken champ, claiming coaches should air grievances privately. Others felt Nicksick was justified in giving an honest assessment, even if it was in public. Then came a bombshell. Fellow coach and fighter Justin Janes claimed the real reason for Nicksick's rant might have been financial. According to Janes, Nicksick sent Strickland a lengthy text about money, presumably how he felt underpaid for devoting so much time to Strickland's fight camp, only to be ignored. Janes theorized that feeling snubbed might have driven Nicksick to vent publicly on that interview. Janes described how coaches sacrifice family time and other fighters' training to focus on marquee names. If the marquee name then fights purely for a paycheck or fails to give the agreed-upon compensation, resentment naturally builds. Sensing the controversy had grown, Nicksick took to his own podcast to explain he'd made a miscalculation. He admitted that calling Strickland's performance uninspiring publicly wasn't the best choice of words or timing. He also explained that hearing Strickland's own confessions of being mentally checked out just minutes before going on air fueled an emotional response. While standing by his critique of the fight, he regretted not phrasing things more diplomatically. Money has always been a sensitive topic in fight camps. Coaches often operate on a percentage basis or under handshake deals. If the fighter loses, the payoff dips, affecting the coach's income too. In Strickland's case, fighting just for a paycheck can come off as ignoring the coach's investment and the deeper pursuit of championship glory. The entire saga underscores how even top-level teams can fracture over misunderstandings, especially when big egos and finances collide.
Made a mistake by accepting the invitation to go on at the timing of where I was at. I just should have said, hey man, not a good time. And that's where I f***ed up. Should have never done it. Threw me for a loop was about 30 minutes before going on aerial. Sean is at practice with us, tells me all these things about how he felt weeks leading up to the fight. And it was very disappointing to hear where his headspace was and what his thought process was about being a champion or all these things. And that's personal. I should have known better. I took that energy and had to process that while I go on aerial.
From broken friendships to call-outs and leaps in weight classes, the MMA landscape is constantly shifting, but one thing remains the same. Conflict, whether in the cage or backstage, always paves the way for the next big storyline. The MMA world thrives on the intersection of athletic brilliance and raw, unfiltered drama. In the space of just a few weeks, we've witnessed Daniel Cormier showing empathy toward Jon Jones instead of hostility might signal a new chapter, or it might be the calm before the storm. Dan Hooker gearing up for a brutal clash with Justin Gaethje, highlighting the lengths some fighters go to for a taste of glory. Bilal Muhammad aiming for 185, stirring the pot with statements that middleweights, barring a few exceptions, are overrated. Undefeated, Henry Cejudo's cringe tactics, Bryce Mitchell's polarizing podcast, and the possibility of Alex Pereira befriending someone he nearly brawled with, Jared Cannonier longing for a shot at Robert Whittaker, eyeing redemption and a leap toward title contention, Sean Strickland and Eric Nicksick exposing the fine line between constructive criticism and personal betrayal, all while revelations of a money dispute bubble up. The big question remains, how will these tangled threads affect the next round of matchups? Will Jon Jones's personal slip-ups keep haunting him, or will he bounce back stronger under the scrutiny? Can Dan Hooker's grim acceptance of pain lead him to triumph, or will Justin Gaethje be the one walking out on his own 2 feet? And will Bilal Muhammad's bold claims spark an actual middleweight run, or is it just talk to keep fans buzzing? MMA never lacks for shocking twists. Rivalries evolve, friendships dissolve, and alliances are forged under the most surprising circumstances. One thing's certain, as fans, we're on the edge of our seats. Whether it's seeing if Henry Cejudo's Triple C antics pay off against the rising Dong, or finding out if Bryce Mitchell's outspoken nature lands him in hot water again, we won't have to wait long for the next wave of seismic headlines. So keep your guard up, stay alert, and brace yourself, because in this sport, each dramatic turn is just a prelude to the next big reveal. Whether we're talking about shocking confessions on a podcast, fiery weigh-in stare-downs, or coaches calling out their own fighters, every detail matters. Every choice a fighter makes, inside or outside the cage, shapes the future of the sport we love. And as you've seen, it only takes one live stream, one controversial comment, or one backstage squabble to send ripple effects through the entire MMA world. Until next time, remember that even the most stable alliances can fall apart with a single misstep, and the bitterest enemies can share a mutual respect when the gloves come off. This is the beauty and the chaos of MMA, a world where nothing is certain and every storyline is worth watching until the final bell.